died of AIDS just a day after he announced he had the disease.
I guess we know the score.
At his bedside, Dave Clark of the Dave Clark Five. I'm Brendan Brooks, and that's Rewind.
Since 2013, the annual Progressive Keys to Progress event has provided deserving veterans with vehicles, helping our heroes drive their lives forward. Learn more about this program at keystoprogress.com.
FM 1019, FM 100.5, wgnsradio.com. The Good Neighbor Network. We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome into the Roundtable. WGNS, I'm Andy Herzer, founder and executive director of First Shot Foundation. On this little chilly but great Monday morning, I welcome in Lee DeLeon, Associate Athletic Director at Middle. And when I met Lee, I know the first words out of my mouth were, and I don't know if you'll remember, but it was at the Stones River Country Club. I said, "You have the most difficult job in the athletic department." You remember that statement?
That's funny, yes.
And you kind of looked at me. That's the first thing somebody would say. But I do believe that. So let's first explain what you do.
Sure.
Kind of big, broad strokes, and then break it down to what it looks like daily.
Yeah. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you for having me and how much I enjoy our relationship and the impact you have on this community. It's awesome. So my job is right now I focus on revenue. So I'm the chief revenue officer for athletics and oversee what's called external affairs. So everything outside of the department. So Diane Turnham has been here for 44 years. She's amazing. And she and I are the two deputy athletic directors. She oversees internal affairs, which is sports medicine, strength conditioning, nutrition, Title IX, all the things that directly touch our athletes. And then I oversee external affairs, which is things outside of the department. So fundraising, marketing, ticket sales, sponsorships, licensing, football scheduling, anything that brings revenue into the department is what I touch on a daily basis. And then the two of us hopefully serve as Chris Massaro's chief advisors and the people that kind of handle the things that he doesn't have time to do. And so, right now he's at the college football playoffs selection committee in Dallas. And so when he's gone, Diane and I try our best to hold things together and run the department when he's not around.
Well, I already saw you do a little of your work. You just met the new
That's right.
St. Thomas Rutherford president.
That's right.
And again, it's one of those things, I think, for all of us that are in fundraising, the difficulties, especially because I believe I'm selling goodwill. I'm not handing them a product, a widget. You're doing the same. You're
Sure.
selling what it can be
Hope.
and why is it
right.
hope.
Selling hope.
Also, why is it good for our community?
That's right.
We both sell the same thing. So when you're sitting down asking, what are the things that you think Middle Tennessee State University brings to the table and why people should invest?
Great question. I think the first answer would be similar to yours. It's a community support. It's a way to give back to our student athletes and coaches and staff. When MTSU wins, Murfreesboro wins. And if we, make a run in the NCAA tournament or win a bowl game, that's good for everybody. It's good for the university. Hopefully enrollment will go up, donations will go up, alumni participation will go up. It's good for the community, and then it gets exposure to Murfreesboro. It gets people talking about the Middle Tennessee area. And so that would be the first thing I would sell, would be community impact. The other thing that I like to sell is the impact on our student athletes. We have a lot of student athletes that are first-generation college students, and you're helping provide them with an education and an experience that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. And so we're giving opportunities to young men and young women that change their lives and change the trajectory of their families for generations. And so that's another thing that we sell. You know, the other thing I like to sell is I'm a super competitive guy. I like to win, and you know, we can't win without resources. And, you know, I heard a great expression a long time ago that it's an athletic director's job or an administrator's job to match resources with expectations. So if we expect our teams to win the conference, then we need to resource and fund them in a way that allows them to win the conference. And so when I sit down with a company or an individual and ask them for support, we need those funds for us to be competitive and for us to win at the highest level. And so those are the three things that I would say you can impact the community, you can impact our student athletes, and you can impact winning.
Well, it all boils down to kind of the cart before the horse. How do you, again, it's why I think it's a tough sell. And for that, how do we go out and sell how our football team is going to need X amount of dollars? And again, let's just be honest. We probably need $7-8 million of likeness money to be competitive at the, so when we go compete against Sunbelt teams and we can go compete against Mountain West teams. So how do we get there?
Yeah,
Lee?
let me take a roundabout answer to that question. You look at Texas Tech this year, and what Texas Tech is showing everybody all over the country is that you don't have to have tradition, you don't have to have the best facilities, you don't have to have the biggest stadium. You just got to have NIL money, and you can win. Texas Tech had the biggest NIL budget in the transfer portal this last year. Then they went out and bought the best players that they can get, and they have a chair of their board of trustees named Cody Campbell that basically told their coach, Joey McGuire, spend whatever you need to spend, and he's funding it. And now they're top 5 in the country.
I use the other example. We have 2 examples.
Yep.
They went out and spent a bunch of money, both of them.
That's right. And so, Texas Tech has become an overnight success through NIL dollars. And so that's one example of the way that you could do this. But, at a place like MTSU or, all the non-Power 4 programs, I think you've got to have a couple of ways to be successful. One is you have to be able to identify talent really well. You can't miss, and if you sign 20 kids, you got to hope that 18 of them are as good as you were thinking they would be. You can't go 10 for 20. Your hit rate has to be high.
But I think that's always been, being an assistant college basketball coach, it was my job to identify that talent.
That's right.
And then get it to the place where my head coach can close the deal.
Yep.
So I don't think that aspect's really changed a lot. But again, I think what has happened is you can't miss as much.
You can't miss as much, and then you can't lose them after 1 year. You got to try to hold on to them at our level for a couple of years. You and I were talking right before the show about Tori Alston, our men's basketball team, who had an unbelievable game last night and helped us beat Murray State. Well, Tori Alston, we read, and he didn't have a lot of options coming out of high school, and the Bill Blue campaign and the transformation that was coming with facilities. Wait till the Bill Blue campaign and the transformation that was coming with facilities. Wait till we get the Murphy Center done in the next 2-3 years. I mean, this place is going to have everything you could possibly need. And so the facilities thing can't be used against us anymore like it was in the past. So now that we've got the facilities, we've got to be able to show that we can be competitive from an NIL standpoint. And we're working on it, because now with the revenue share model that passed this year in July with the House settlement, it's not just fundraising dollars that we can use for revenue share. Use for NIL and paying our athletes. We can use revenue share from ticket sales and from concessions and from parking. And so when we have events like the Tennessee women's basketball game last week where we crushed it, a portion of that money can now go towards Tori Alston for next year, or towards one of our, Macy Pfeiffer, the freshman stud on the women's basketball team, And so we've got to be able to find creative ways to generate revenue, and my team and I are working on it every day, because that revenue can now help us not only identify talent but retain talent.
So when you look at the market that we are in, Lee, we're in the Nashville market.
Correct.
What obstacles does that present versus when you look at, and I think what people don't understand, a Marshall that's out in the middle of nowhere and they're not competing for dollars. I even would throw in our own conference, Western Kentucky.
Yep.
They're in a very different demographic, even though
Liberty.
they might be considered. Nashville, they're 80 miles away. We're 30 at best.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And having Nashville so close is good and bad, right? It's good because it gives our athletes potential to tap into some bigger companies and to get some NIL dollars and get some exposure like a Diego Pavia is doing at Vanderbilt right now. But it's also bad because, the competition for the dollar is so high and there's so many things to do in Nashville, from the Grand Ole Opry to the Ryman to Broadway to everything in between. And so plus all the professional sports teams, the Titans and the Preds and NSC. And so, there's just so much competition for the dollar in Nashville that makes it really difficult. But I think we've got to find people and help them develop a brand. Like I think about, it was before I got here, but you remember it well when Giddy Potts was here. Giddy would have killed it with NIL because he had such a great brand. Everybody knew this, this short, dynamic, electric three-point shooter that, had a huge smile and a great personality. And, he would have done awesome in the NIL world. And so how do we try to help our athletes? I think a good one right now for us is going to be our quarterback, our younger quarterback, Roman Gagliano. He's a great player, but man, he's a likable guy. Big smile, big personality, major it factor. We got to help him find ways in Nashville and in Murfreesboro to capitalize on that so that he can make some really good NIL money. So
when you look at him, I think you and I sat up at the Western Kentucky game. Yep. By the way, thank you for the tickets.
You're welcome.
So my family could go up and watch our granddaughter dance. I look at it, and here's a kid that he's also got a physical presence. It's
big guy. He's a big guy.
But big, good-looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a package now.
Yep.
So talk about how you guys are really gonna package a Roman.
Yeah, it's somewhat uncharted for us, Andy. So we're kind of figuring out, what's the expression? You're building the plane as you're flying it type of deal. But he does have a lot of marketable, appealing traits to him that we've got to capitalize on. And last year he did this podcast with Nick Vadiato, the two quarterbacks, and you could see that you had a really dynamic personality during those podcasts. And so that was before he started playing, before everyone realized how good he was. Now that he's playing and balling out, and 2 games in, he's been phenomenal. And now we got to figure out, okay, what do we do with this talent and this personality to really help him explode here at MTSU and really make a name for himself in this community. And a big part of that is just showing up. That's one thing that I've learned a long time ago in college athletics, whether you're a head coach or an AD. A big part of the battle, Andy, is you just got to show up. You got to be visible. You got to be present. And that's one thing I actually admire about you. You're everywhere, and you do a great job of that, being in this community and being at different events and functions. So I think that's one of the first things we have to do with Roman is just make sure he's visible. Make sure people see him. He's got bright red hair and just big smile and great personality. So we just got to have him in the right place at the right time. Whether that's the Christmas parade, whether that's, Boys and Girls Club stuff, first shot stuff. We just got to get him there. Get him in front of people. Get him at the chamber. Get him at ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings. And so that's one thing. Then the other thing we got to do is make sure that people know he's accessible, know how to get a hold of him. If they want to have a spokesperson for their local business or company, how do they do that? How do they communicate with him? The short answer is reach out to me, and I can help facilitate that. We also have a general manager for football named Dana Marquez, and this is part of his job as well, is negotiating these deals and contracts with our athletes. And so between me and Dana, we want to really help Roman and position Roman to make as much money as possible so that he stays and doesn't go into the transfer portal.
So you just mentioned a new a new job that's on a college football team, general manager. Explain why it's so necessary for a college team to have a general manager like a pro team does.
It's amazing, and it's almost surprising that we never had one, but now the school is going to give each coach a budget. This is how much money we can afford through Rev Share for your program. And then that person, the general manager, is now in charge of, okay, how much are we going to put towards our starting quarterback versus our backup wide receiver versus our third string tailback, and they have to have this almost formulaic approach to how they're going to divide up this money. And then they work on contracts. Dana has a contract with the athletes to make sure that they know exactly what they need to do to receive those funds and when they're going to get paid, and anything that would prevent them from getting paid, whether that's they don't go to class or they don't come to practice on time. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way contract that these players have with us, and Dana and our general managers in charge of writing and executing those contracts and making sure that the players hold up their end of the deal. And so it's a really important role.
They got to be a lawyer.
Yes, a legal background would help for sure. But no, every school in the country is now having these GMs mainly for football and basketball. And you've got to have somebody just monitoring the payroll, for lack of a better term, and dividing up the payroll and making sure that you're spending the money in the right places. You're making good investments with your funds. I'll give you an example. Last year we had a wide receiver named Omari Kelly that was dynamic and was probably the best receiver in Conference USA last year. He gets a huge NIL offer to go to Michigan State. We can't match it, so he leaves. Well, we knew we couldn't. Well, let me rephrase. We could have gone out to find one person to try to replace Omari Kelly's production, but instead we went out and tried to get 3 or 4 guys. Unfortunately, one of them blew his knee out before the season started, Tyree Patterson from Central Florida, but we got 3 or 4 other guys combined for that one investment that we would have made in Omari Kelly. And so that was a strategic decision, and I think it came really close to working, except for injuries setting us back a little bit. But now you can make those type of decisions based on data. Is it better to have one go-to wide receiver, or do you get 3 or 4 for the same dollar value? What's the better ROI? It's a business now. And it's always kind of business.
It always has been a business.
It always has been, but now even more so. And so you have somebody dedicated, Andy, to that business side.
So when you look at it, I've always been told that you have to look in the trenches for football. How are you going to, again, I've always said you can't judge a quarterback if you don't have a good line.
No doubt about that.
So how do we, again, what do you think of, just go outrageous, what dollar amount do we have to have for likeness, name and likeness and image?
Name, image, and likeness, it depends on what conference you're in and who you're competing with, who do you recruit against, but I would say most non-Power 4 teams right now are going to operate in the $2 to $5 million NIL range for football. The Power 4 teams, they're more like 15 to 20 million. And we have this new Rev Share cap. I'm sure you're aware of. It's 20.5 million this year. That's the limit of the amount of institutional funds that can be allocated towards NIL. But that doesn't factor in outside NIL deals. So like one of ours I always like to use, my friend Jeff Nebel at the Boulevard. He does NIL deals with 5 to 10 of our athletes every year, and he does a separate contract between the Boulevard and the athlete. That does not count towards the $20.5 million cap. So now all these schools are trying to maximize their $20.5 million from university dollars, and then supplement that with extra money that doesn't count against the 20.5. And so you'll be hearing of Texas Tech and Ohio State and UT having a budget of $25 million. That's how they get around it, is they got their institutional money, but then they supplement that with these outside deals. And so it's a lot of money.
When you're looking at it, when you're looking at the outside deals, how does the NCAA govern that?
Yeah. So actually, the NCAA doesn't govern it. They hired Deloitte, an outside consultant, to now govern that, and they have this website called nilgo.com. And what that website and what that company, Deloitte, is doing is making sure that these athletes are getting paid for something real. It's not just fluff. And so let's say Roman, our quarterback that we mentioned, signs a deal with the Boulevard for next year, and he gets paid, I don't know, $1,000 for this deal, and he has to tweet out before and after, or before every home game, hey, stop by the Boulevard after the game for a post-victory beer or beverage or drink or
Whatever, yeah.
food, whatever. NIL Go sees that because Roman has to report that. And they say, okay, $1,000 for 6 tweets with Roman's following of 10,000 people. Yeah, that's fair. And then they approve it. So every outside deal has to be approved.
Followed.
Yeah,
Think about that.
We do need to work on that.
Right? That's part of the marketing.
That's part of their marketing.
Right? So,
How do we increase their following?
If Roman has 50,000 people, that
helps.
It's going to help.
That helps him for sure. We need our fans out there.
I don't have that many followers.
None of us do. But we do need it. We do need our fans out there to follow our athletes and to help build up their social media impact, because that stuff matters to businesses.
So when you look at this, and it's so beyond my 64 years because it's so new, the whole tweets, the whole, TikTok.
Yep.
I'm not on any of those. Now we do have Facebook and all that. And we have about 5,000 followers, but how do you drive that? Have you guys figured that part out?
I don't know if we figured it out. One thing that you can do that I've seen a lot of schools do is at least create a physical space for the athletes to record stuff. So like a studio like this where they can do podcasts and they can record videos of themselves and they can post content. A big part of increasing your followers is having really good content to put on those platforms. And so in order to do that, you have to have cameras and you have to have microphones and you have to have things like that to really increase your following. And so the ones that do it best with the TikTok videos and whatnot are people that have equipment to record those things and they do it continually, and that's how they build up their fan base.
Isn't that something that we already have existing on our campus with our recording industry? And
I'm not super familiar.
We used to do our TV show, and we'd have to go over to the studio, and they'd film it. So
Yep. Yeah, I am not super familiar with all the resources that the audio and production services and the different departments on campus and the recording industry management program have, but I'm sure that there's a lot that we could tap into. We do have a space. When our men's tennis team moved into their new building, the outdoor tennis complex, that freed up their old locker room, and we converted that locker room into a space where we could do podcasts and where we could do videos, where we could have a green screen, where we could, record things. And so Mark Owens and his team have used that really well to help our athletes. But yeah, we've got to give them a platform. Another thing that I saw over the weekend, I went to school at Notre Dame, and CJ Carr, the quarterback, did an article through the Players Tribune, and that is taken off like gangbusters, and they talked about it during the broadcast on Saturday on NBC, and that's going to help his following, doing stories, articles, testimonials, whatever, for people to get to know who you are and know your backstory. That stuff helps for sure. So we just got to facilitate that a little bit more.
It's amazing to me when I played, you just went and played. You worried about practice, getting stronger, getting better. You didn't have to. You didn't have the. You had the outside distractions, but you didn't have the outside commitment. Like what people don't understand, these athletes are getting paid $1.8, $2 million. if they're being monitored now, what is their worth, and how do they?
That's right.
It's crazy how
it is crazy, and the demand on the athletes has gotten even more, has gotten even greater than it was before. You know, I mentioned the two types of NIL, so you can get the money from the school. You don't have to do anything in return for that other than go to class and go to practice and not miss study hall. But the money that you get from these outside companies, because of the NIL Go and the Deloitte mechanisms that are in place, you do have to do stuff. You are held accountable to fulfill your contract in order to get paid before the game, or show up for this appearance on my day off. You can't just sleep in anymore. Like so there are expectations and requirements that the contract stipulates that these athletes have to fulfill to get paid, and that's a new world.
What is the average Conference USA package that the schools are able to give? So in other words, you have 20.5. The average Conference USA is 5.5 or 7 or whatever million. What is it?
I don't know that, because the schools haven't disclosed all that information, but it did come out. I saw a report yesterday, and so I'm sure it'll start hitting the news waves more and more, is that Conference USA presidents agreed that over the next, I think 3 years, we're going to be required to spend $8.25 million on revenue share. The American came out a couple years ago, American Conference, which Memphis is in, and their number I think was $9 million over 3 years. And so now we're putting in these minimums that everybody from New Mexico State, who doesn't have a very big budget, to Liberty, who has a huge budget, they're all going to have to participate in this revenue sharing for at least $8.25 million over the next 3 years.
But they can do more.
They can do more. That's a minimum.
Right. So what if you can't get to that minimum? What if New Mexico State can't get to that minimum? What happens?
They can't stay in our league. That's my understanding. That's my understanding. I don't know all the details, Andy, but you know, it's a requirement for membership in Conference USA moving forward.
Wow. Huge commitment. That's just a big, daunting number.
It's a big number, but the presidents were the ones that agreed to it and voted on it. So it's a good sign for us, because you know, when I hear that, I'm like, well, where are we going to get that money? But hey, if the president signed off on it, then he'll make sure we get it somehow, some way.
Well, I don't know if that makes your job easier. I just think it's the start. It's just a good start, Lee. So
it is.
Again, if that's the minimum, then what is the expectation put on you to match that minimum?
Right. Yeah, because maybe the president will say, okay, we're going to do this, but Lee, you and your team need to go raise it, or generate it in other ways. Tennessee last year implemented a talent fee, which was, I think, a 10% surcharge on all ticket sales to help fund their NIL program.
Yeah, but you can do that when you have a waiting list.
That's right.
Right.
We don't have a waiting list.
And again, it's not, and I'm not busting where we're at. I'm just saying there. And again, we live in an area that that's has 5 different pro sports.
Yep.
That are fighting for marketing and entertainment dollars.
That's right. Well, one thing we're going to try, Andy, and we've done it a little bit so far. We've had 2 songwriters event. One at Uncle Nearest in Shelbyville and one in Nashville. And the proceeds for those events went towards NIL. And our athletes had to promote it. And then those generated, about $20,000, $15,000, $20,000 each. What we want to do now is expand those, Andy. And so we're looking at concerts in the Murphy Center. And what I like about concerts is that it's not just sports fans that would be supporting our NIL efforts. You're opening up to music fans and people in the area that just love to go to concerts and shows. And so you're not just continuing to hit the same people. Because right now that's the hard part of my job. You have the BRAA. We need people to join the BRAA. We got season tickets. We need you to buy season tickets. We got corporate sponsorships. We got NIL. We got the Bill Blue campaign on our capital projects and our facility renovations. All these things, and a lot of times we're hitting the same people for those. What I like about the concerts is it's different people. It's just people that love music and love certain artists and love entertainment. And so if we could put on some shows at the Murphy Center and maybe even Floyd Stadium, that's additional dollars that we could put towards NIL that could really help us be competitive and help us get to that 8.25 minimum. So I think there will be some schools that just fund it. Hey, take this money, we're putting it into your budget. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I think it's going to be probably some type of combination of we'll have to raise some of it, and the university will have to reallocate funds from other sources. So I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, Andy, but I know we're going to have to find a way.
So when you look at it, the whole idea of this revenue sharing was TV money. So what does Conference USA teams get from revenue from TV money from football and basketball per year?
I don't have an exact number, but I know that these midweek games that we've done for football with ESPN and CBS Sports has helped that tremendously. Our TV contract is bigger than it's been in the past, and that's something that we got to continue to look for new creative ways to get more money from the league because of things like NIL and making sure that we're staying competitive.
Well, we're going to take a break and be right back with Lee.
Whether it's a cough, a fever, or something you can't quite name, MMC Now makes care easy. Walk right in, get seen quickly, and your visit connects directly to your MMC doctor. Care you trust, with providers you know, with digital check-in and multiple locations around town. MMC Now is here when you need us.
Murfreesboro Medical Clinic.
It's the most magical day of the year, and you can watch it all live. Big G TV is where Christmas comes to life with coverage of the Murfreesboro Parade, Sunday, December 14th at 2 p.m. Brought to you by Kenneth Barrett for Sheriff, Middle Tennessee Electric, Farm Bureau Insurance, and Woodfin Funeral Chapels. See every float, every smile, and the moment Santa arrives on Big G TV. Streaming at wgnsradio.com/parade.
Sign-ups are going on right now for First Shot's Winter Basketball League in Rutherford County. Coach Andy Herzer guides kids to sharpen basketball skills and build teamwork through exciting clinics and games. Since 2003, First Shot has empowered youth to grow in mind, spirit, and body. Don't miss out. Join the fun and develop lifelong skills. Visit firstshottn.org today and register for the Winter Basketball League. That's firstshottn.org.
Woke radical liberals are screwing up this country, but Senator Bill Hagerty is fighting back. He backed one big, beautiful tax cut for working families, ending Social Security taxes for nearly all seniors, and taxes on tips and overtime gone. So call Senator Bill Hagerty at 202-224-4944 and thank him for backing working family tax cuts and putting America first. Paid for by American Prosperity Alliance.
Choosing the right insurance can be overwhelming. That's where Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance comes in. At Rayburn, we're not just about policies, we're about people. Rick Hall will take the time to understand your needs and find the best coverage at the best price. We've been serving our community since 1973. So why not let Rick Hall take the stress out of insurance? Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency, where you're more than just a policy number. You're our neighbors.
Good Neighbor Events is brought to you by the law offices of John Day, AmeriCare Pest Control, and Old National Bank.
This is a paid legal ad.
At the law offices of John Day, we take only real cases that make a real difference.
My name is Laura Lynn, and my family needed legal help. The law offices of John Day took the burden really off of my shoulders. Never once did I feel secondary to anything else that was going on.
we want to make a difference in the community we hold so dear. And if you're ever injured, know that we are here for you too. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. The lighting of the Rutherford County Christmas tree will be next week, next Friday, not this one, 5 o'clock in the evening on the east side of the Rutherford County Courthouse. That's Friday, December 5th, 5 o'clock, right there on the Murfreesboro Square. And the Red Cross is still critically low on blood. Please give the gift of life. Right now, you can phone 800-RED-CROSS and make an appointment to give the gift of life at a time that fits your schedule. All ages can benefit from learning yoga. It improves flexibility, strength, balance, stress relief, better sleep, and enhanced heart health, as well as an overall mental well-being. Why don't you try yoga? There are yoga classes at SportsCom, the Patterson Community Center, and the St. Clair Street Senior Center. So get in touch with the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department and learn more about the yoga classes that you can benefit from. For more Good Neighbor events, check our website, wgnsradio.com.
Rutherford weather.
Few spotty rain showers possible late this afternoon. Otherwise, partial sunshine develops, a high in the low 70s. Tonight, chance for rain, cloudy, and a low near 57. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center. Currently, it's 46.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. As a member of MTE, you have access to educational resources to help you tailor energy use to your lifestyle. Interested in electric vehicles? MTE offers incentives to learn about EVs and connect with others who share your interest.
Sign-ups are going on right now for First Shot's Winter Basketball League in Rutherford County. Coach Andy Herzer guides kids to sharpen basketball skills and build teamwork through exciting clinics and games. Since 2003, First Shot has empowered youth to grow in mind, spirit, and body. Don't miss out. Join the fun and develop lifelong skills. Visit FirstShotTN.org today and register for the Winter Basketball League. That's FirstShotTN.org.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into the Roundtable. I'm Andy Herzer, founder and executive director of First Shot. Here's my ask for this week is we are doing our Christmas ask. We are trying to make special for 60 young children in our community to have a little bit better Christmas. If your heart so leads you to donate, we're asking $100 a head, so we're trying to raise $6,000. If you can give me a call at 615-631-5312, I'd greatly appreciate it. We are only $2,000 away from that goal, so I just need 20 people to commit to $100. So again, thank you, and Lee, welcome back in.
Thanks, Andy. Good to be with you.
We're going to kind of shift gears a little bit.
All right.
I've always kind of been interested in coaches that are Christ-centered, athletic directors that are Christ-centered. Obviously, because I am. Obviously not a perfect Christian whatsoever. Fall short every day. But tell us about how you started.
ADs for Christ.
ADs for Christ.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking.
And how it's grown.
It's been an amazing testament to what God can do with little people like me. But I was at Abilene Christian University in West Texas from 2014 to 2018. And was just so honored and blessed to get to serve as the athletic director there. And I realized as I was doing that, I think it was in my second or third year, like, man, I really needed help. I needed somebody to give me godly wisdom and guidance and advice, to pray for me, to encourage me, to help me navigate, how to fire people in a godly way, how to hire the right Christian men and women to lead their programs. And So I asked the AD at the time of Auburn University, Jay Jacobs. I said, "Hey, man, will you mentor me?" And he said, "Yeah, absolutely." And then at the same time, I also had a best friend who was the athletic director at Louisiana Tech at the time, Tommy McClellan, who's now at Rice. And he and I talked all the time, and Jay and I talked all the time. So I had these two guys that I really leaned on, one as a mentor and one as a best friend. And in 2017, I said to those guys, I said, like, I feel like we should start something to where we can get Christian athletic directors and fellow administrators to come together and create a safe place where we can talk about real life stuff. We can pray together, we can worship together, we can encourage each other. And, iron sharpens iron, like it says in Proverbs 27:17. And so they said, great. So I organized an event in Dallas, Texas in July of 2017. And we called it ADs for Christ. And we had about 20 people from all over the country show up at that first event. And what's cool is that now, fast forward, 8 years or whatever, the people in the room at the time are now the athletic director at Boise State, at Grand Canyon, at Pepperdine, at North Texas, at Rice. It was an amazing group. And one of our first speakers, you will remember him, it was Mike Hamilton, former AD at Tennessee, known for hiring Lane Kiffin, but also for firing Philip Fulmer. But he was an unbelievable man and unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But that first event, we could tell there was something really cool. It was just God ordained, and we were really excited about the future there. Well, since then we've had 8 more events, and I served as the president for the first 5 years, and it became just this incredibly fulfilling ministry that my whole family, my wife Lacey got really involved. We created a board of directors. We became an official 501c3 nonprofit. We have bylaws and website and sponsorship packages, all this stuff. And so that first event was about 20 people. And 2-3 years later, we actually moved to Nashville before I lived here. And we hosted it at Lipscomb University, which is Abilene Christian's sister school, fellow Church of Christ institution. And we had 80 people. We're like, okay, this is really, really picking up. And then COVID hit, but we kept going. We met remotely that year, and then we just came back and ended up at Belmont. And then and that was my last year running it. So I think I did 6 events. And we had incredible speakers from Michael W. Smith to John Gordon to Trent Dilfer when he was at Lipscomb Academy, to athletic directors from all over the country. And it was really special fellowship and iron sharpening iron. And now that database of, which started at 20 has grown to over 500 members of this organization. And although I don't run it anymore, I'm still engaged and active with it. And they meet at different conferences throughout the year. And then we still have this annual event. Last year it was at Louis Giglio's church in Atlanta. Louis has been a speaker multiple times, and this year it's going to be at a church back in Nashville, which I'm excited to have it back here in Middle Tennessee. But it's amazing what God has done through that ministry, and I'm blessed to be a part of it.
So when you get together and meet, I'm one of these that when I was working at a local bank, I won't call them out, but I always said, man, we just meet to meet. Is it a job justification? So when you're going to meet, what's the itinerary? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Like, I can tell you, First Shot, we want to teach God's word to every kid in Rutherford County.
I love it.
We ain't going to get there, but that's our goal and our mission.
Yep.
So
the mission of ADs for Christ is to encourage, connect, and equip athletic directors to make an impact for Jesus Christ through college athletics. And so the first thing that we want to do is just connect people. Get them in the room, get them talking, exchange phone numbers. We have small groups, and the intent is for that small group to stay in touch throughout the year, and really be a source of encouragement through good times and bad during the in between the events. We worship together. it's funny. We had a guy for several years that led worship every year named John Reddick, and now that guy has blown up. And I saw him perform at the Ryman last month. He's incredibly successful Christian artist now. But we worship together, and then we bring in really good speakers to challenge and to encourage and to motivate us to live out our faith. Some of the best Christian ADs in the country are not at Christian schools. They're at public schools, like Mitch Barnhart at the University of Kentucky, Scott Strickland, University of Florida. Just amazing men of God that, have to do it in a little bit of a different way than you could when I was at Abilene Christian, or my friend Tanner at Pepperdine, or my friend Ian at Liberty. We can be a little bit more overt about it as Christians at a Christian athletic directors at a Christian university. But some of these guys like Scott and Ian and Mitch, they have to be a little bit more creative and careful, because you could lose your job. And so we would have them come and speak to us. What does that look like? What does it look like to be an SEC AD with the spotlight on you, but to still live out your faith and to honor God and represent God in the way you live? So speakers were a huge part of what we do as well.
I've always found, because, I don't speak at a church, right? So I always say when I go, this is what I believe. Mm-hmm. You don't have to believe this way. But this is why I believe this way. So I'm always sharing my faith, even in places I'm probably not supposed to.
I love it.
But again, I love the fact that it's still growing.
It is.
Because I thought when I coached, it was a very dark. No one talked about it. It was almost like you had to hide, being a Christian. And, God woke me up, said, no, you don't.
That's awesome.
Just trust me, and I'll protect you.
That's exactly right. And you need other people that are in the same boat as you to come alongside you and say, you're not alone. We're not intended to go through this life in this industry by ourselves. We need other people to lift us up when we're struggling and to pray for us when we need it. And man, 80s for Christ has been such a blessing in that regard, just to have other like-minded people just in the trenches with you. You know?
Like I said, going back to the very first thing I said on this show, I think you have the toughest job, or one of the toughest jobs on that campus, raising money. And I learned through Middle, and it's helped me in my fundraising efforts, is to ask once.
Yeah.
Get the package together, what you want to ask them for, and ask them once, and don't go back.
Yeah.
So like this Christmas ask, I never ask anybody that has already supported me. I'm asking people that haven't. People. So we're always building, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I try to do as a fundraiser, and it's easier said than done, right? But I really believe people give to people, and if they like you, they're going to want to support you. And so my encouragement to the fundraisers out there is build genuine relationships and take an interest in people. I have two young boys that are 14 and 11, and I tell Landon and Luke all the time, be interested, not interesting. Take an interest in people.
For us, Lee, Philippians 2, 3, and 4, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility.
Consider others better than yourself.
But not also to look at your own interests, but the interests of others. Sometimes being second fiddle has helped.
Amen. That's really good. I never connected that Bible verse from what we were talking about. That's awesome.
Well, when you're talking, that's what goes through my brain, are verses that connect people. And I just love the fact that now I've been out 24 years.
Wow.
It would have been nice to see those athletic directors, my leaders, right?
Yeah.
Because you're a leader of the coaches.
Yeah.
I would consider you my boss. I considered Diane my boss when she was there. So, again, it's amazing to me that it's coming full circle.
Yeah, and Diane is an incredible woman of God. She and I have a Bible study at the Murphy Center every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And sometimes there'll be 3 or 4 people. Sometimes there'll be 5 to 10 people. But we have to be ourselves, and we have to be true to who we are and who God wired us and created us to be. I can't keep, it goes back to that old nursery, children's song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine. Like, you can't hide it under a bushel. You can't pretend to be somebody you're not. And I've been grateful to work for people like Chris Massaro that accept me for who I am. And they know that that's part of my overall package, is that I'm going to be
part of your DNA,
part of who I am. And I'm going to be different, and I'm going to treat people differently. I'm going to say things that maybe other people don't say, but Chris and others have allowed me to be myself. And Diane has been an open, overt Christian and part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes for many years and for decades even. And she's an inspiration to me. And so, that's how I try to live my life, is to build genuine relationships and honor God with the way that I live out my faith on a daily basis. And I'm blessed to get to do that here at MTSU, and about to start year 5. And I just couldn't be more excited to be here.
Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and we'll do it again.
All right.
I think we've just scratched the surface of
All
this.
right.
So, again, this is it from the Roundtable. I'm Andy Herzer, Executive Director and founder of First Shot.
Subscribe to Big G TV, local content that matters to Rutherford County.